guys, so I'm here to film what has become a bit of an annual tradition, and that is 20 things I plan on doing in 2020. Now naturally this video title has changed somewhat. Last year it was 19 things to do in 2019 and the year before it was 18 things to do in 2018. But I really enjoyed filming that video both years, and I sat down and had a little think and found myself, you know, easily coming up with a list of 20 things. I'm not sure how far into the future I will continue doing this video. Will I be doing 30 things to do in 2030? Who knows, YouTube might not exist then. But I am here to do this year's video. Beyond that is not really relevant. But if you haven't seen one of these videos before, it's not exactly a list of New Year's resolutions. It's more about kind of looking forward to the new year and making plans for things I will enjoy, having things to do when I'm at a loss for what to do, maybe feeling a little bit low and thinking, oh, can't regather myself, what could I do with myself? Oh yeah, I made that list of nice things to do in the year, maybe I'll do one of those. Or they are things that I kind of have to do in the year. So say in regards to my PhD or other aspects of my life, things that I am both happy that I'm doing, but also, you know, kind of have deadlines and need to be completed during the year. So there's quite a diverse selection of things on this list, all the way from museum exhibits to career goals. So I'm just going to jump straight in and chat to you about them all. So when I started making my list, I kind of started with things like museums and exhibitions and places to go and see, specifically in London, because that is where I live, and it's such a big city and there's so much going on there that I always like to make it a priority to make the most of being there. And at the same time, there are also so many amazing things to do in London which are both free or inexpensive that I, you know, want to take advantage of. So first up is go to the Guildhall Amphitheatre. So Guildhall is situated in the centre of London and it's a more modern building. I mean, I say modern because to me anything sort of medieval onwards is modern. But underneath this building is a Roman amphitheatre for when the Romans settled in, you know, like South England and established Londinium. And in 2019 I wanted to go to the Mithraeum, which is equally an underground piece of Roman archaeology. It was a temple to the god Mithras. And I did go and do that. It was a lot of fun, it was free, and what a wonderful opportunity to have like ancient history on your doorstep that you can visit. And Guildhall is of the same ilk. It is an amphitheatre. Amphitheatres were where the Romans hosted like their games, all the way from sort of like gladiatorial games to, you know, the sacrifice of humans and animals, and the remains of that amphitheatre are there in London and publicly accessible. And I don't think a lot of people realise it's there because I don't think it necessarily gets as much press as say something like the British Museum, and it is kind of buried underneath a building whose purpose is something completely different. But I do believe the amphitheatre is free to visit like the Mithraeum was. I probably need to double check that, but from what I remember it is, and I would just like to take advantage of seeing that because if you don't know, I am an ancient historian, although my specialist area is 4th century Athens, so absolutely nothing to do with Roman Britain, but nevertheless I'm always interested in seeing and learning more. Carrying on the ancient theme though, there's actually an exhibit in London at the British Museum that I would like to go and see, and that is Troy, Myth and Reality. This began in 2019 but it runs to the 8th of March in 2020, so I want to take advantage of going to see it early in the year. I don't go to a lot of paid exhibits because they can be kind of pricey, and I feel like personally I need to really care about the subject and have like a really vested interest in it to pay to go and see it. But Troy is one of those as a sort of a really kind of major part of our understanding of antiquity, and I think it's a really fascinating example of the interaction between myth and reality, and I like that twist on the exhibit because Troy was a real place. The Trojan War, from what we can tell, did really happen. However, we remember it from quite a mythological perspective. I mean, was Helen and Achilles and Agamemnon real is an entirely separate question. Was the events of the Iliad in any way real? Entirely separate really from the place and the history itself. So I would like to go and see that. I might enlist a friend to come along with me, but if not, I'll probably just go alone. Somewhere else that's actually free though is the V&A, which is the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and I still haven't been. Despite, I think, putting this on previous lists before, but I've always had a lot of museums and art galleries on these lists, and I've seen most of them as the years have gone on, so it's no surprise I haven't seen everything yet. However, Victoria and Albert has kind of reached the top of my priority list now. The museum itself is specifically a museum of art and design, so I personally kind of think of it as an art gallery in my mind. I'm not sure what the official distinction is, but I would really like to make a priority to go and see their kind of standing pieces whilst I'm living in London. Another thing I'd like to do while I'm living in London that I have been meaning to do for ages and have not got around to, but prioritising in 2020 is go to Kew Gardens. Kew Gardens is the botanical gardens in London, and I love botanical gardens, but I would like to finally see Kew. I mean, people rave about these botanical gardens, and as somebody who already enjoys botanical gardens, I have no doubt that I will love Kew Gardens. Based on what friends have said though, I think I'm going to wait for spring rather than doing that early in the year when winter is still lingering, because I'd like to see all the kind of like spring plants and flowers in bloom, so that would be really, really nice. Then not a museum, but somewhere else I would like to go in London is the Colosseum, which is the venue for the English National Opera. I love opera. It's something I only got into really in 2018. I saw my first opera and was blown away. I think it's spectacular, and I now actually listen to a lot of opera music in my spare time, which I honestly never really saw coming. But I've never been to the Colosseum, which, like I mentioned, is the venue for the English National Opera in London. I've only ever been to the Royal Opera House in London. And although opera I think can be a little bit intimidating because it's quite expensive, what I actually learned from one of you guys was that the Colosseum offers cheap tickets to under 30s, which I currently still am, so should take advantage of whilst I still am. And you can get like £10 tickets for the Colosseum if you're under 30 for certain performances. You can also get cheap tickets for the Royal Opera House, I'd like to mention, in case you're interested to see ballet or opera there if you're a student. And I've done that many, many times, because what they do is email you the day before if you signed up for their mailing list to let you know they've got tickets left over that haven't been sold, and as a student you can buy them for £10. So that's mainly how I see my opera, unless somebody else kind of takes me, I think. That's what's within my budget, but it's wonderful that I can see so much of that kind of incredible artwork, essentially. There's so much skill goes into an opera. On such a low budget, so I kind of want to take advantage of going to the Colosseum whilst it's still a little bit cheaper. And on that note, something else I would like to do is go to the theatre by myself. I find sometimes when there is like a play, opera or a ballet or what have you that is discounted, or I'd like to go and see last minute because I found cheap tickets, it's not always possible to find somebody else that's free, and therefore I just don't go. However, I go to the cinema by myself all the time, and I don't see why I should see those two things as different. Why not go to the theatre by myself? So I would also like to go to the theatre by myself, you know, take advantage of some cheap tickets, some last minute tickets, and just, you know, go see something that I'm interested in and experience it on the stage by myself. So yeah. Rather than something to go to, however, something that I will require people to come to me for is that I would like to host a murder mystery party in 2020. Honestly, I love hosting. Like, I love throwing a party, whether it's during the day or in the evening for a birthday or for some other occasion, just randomly off the cuff. Something I really enjoy, I've discovered, is organising fun. And something I've never actually done before is host a murder mystery party. So I've been thinking that perhaps this year, my 28th birthday, will be my first murder mystery party. So friends beware, that may be coming your way, and it's something I think I would really enjoy in 2020. Equally on that note, however, there's a couple of things I would like to keep doing in 2020 that I've gotten a lot of joy out of in 2019, so I want to make it a priority to keep doing in 2020 and continue getting joy out of it, because it doesn't always have to be about doing things you've never done before. It can just be about kind of continuing on with things you've already discovered a love for. And one of those is to continue hosting board game night. I love hosting board game night with my friends in my flat. I love having people around to play board games and charades and split into teams. Honestly, I'm not that competitive, which I feel like might be what people are getting from this. I rarely win, and I don't really care if I lose. It's never a good idea to be on my team at board game night because it's never my priority to actually win. I just really like organising the whole event. and getting everybody involved. So I would like to keep up board game night, and I love playing board games, and I would love to discover more new fun board games I've never played before, which I have managed to do a bit of in 2019. I've found quite a few fun new board games. Let me know if you'd like a board game recommendation video. And I'd also like to keep going to see live comedy. I love live comedy. Despite having just said that I really love opera, I am far more of a live comedy person than, say, a music person. Like, I would pick live comedy over a gig any day of the week. And in London, I don't know about anywhere else to be honest, you could go and see live comedy every night of the week if you wanted. It's everywhere and it's all the time, and it doesn't have to be expensive. I usually go and see free or cheap live comedy. I mean, if you go and see free live comedy, the expectation is that you kind of like chuck some money in the bucket afterwards, which I do tend to do because I've had a really nice evening out, but it doesn't have to be expensive, and I really enjoy going to do that. I genuinely do believe that laughter is the best medicine, and I would just like to keep up going to see live comedy in 2020, and maybe, you know, finding some new comedy venues I haven't been to before. Something that I can do within my house and by myself though is continue to craft. Something I really got into in 2019 was crafting. I took up knitting. That was actually in my 2019 video where I talked about the 19 things I wanted to do in 2019. I wanted to learn to knit. That I have done. I still only knit scarves, okay? I haven't learned how to knit anything other than a straight line at this point. Maybe one of my goals should be more specifically to learn to knit something else, like a hat. I feel like a hat is the next step in my knitting journey. But regardless, I'd just like to continue knitting, and I'd also like to continue embroidery. I also got into embroidery later on in the year. I embroidered some presents for my friends for Christmas, which I hope they didn't mind, the kind of DIY nature of that. I really enjoyed doing it, and I have some blank t-shirts of my own that I think I'd like to embroider little designs onto and kind of jazz up. It's something I really enjoy doing while listening to an audiobook. It keeps your hands occupied, but equally I'm not sitting fiddling with my phone, which I think is instinct when you've got free hands, for me anyway. And I find it really relaxing, especially in the evening or when I've been having a stressful day, so I would like to keep that up. And lastly, for this sort of section of the list, is go to Cambridge. I've been aiming to see more of England since I moved there. You know, it's a large place and I've not seen much of it, although I've seen quite a few more places over the past couple of years. One of those, like I mentioned earlier, was Oxford. I really enjoyed visiting Oxford for the day, and in 2020 I'd really like to visit Cambridge for the day because I've always wanted to kind of go there since I went to Oxford. But equally, this is something that I don't think should be a problem because I am meant to be going to a sort of like academic event in Cambridge at some point during the year. So assuming that nothing goes awry there, I will be going to Cambridge, and I always like to have things on this list that really should be happening. It doesn't have to be something that I achieved in 2020. It can be something that, you know, the groundwork was set for in 2019 and I will just be accomplishing or, you know, completing in 2020. So going to Cambridge would be one of those. I'm sure I'll probably be quite busy with the academic side of things, but if there's any cute little shops or bookshops or cafes or little places in Cambridge that you think I should check out when I'm there for the day, let me know. And then I think the next few things on my list are more like well, career orientated, university orientated, just sort of more like accomplishments in terms of that. The first one is actually just to record season 4 of my podcast. I say just, but a lot of work goes into recording my podcast. If you don't know, I have a podcast called That's Ancient History, which specialises in discussing antiquity, both ancient history and classical civilizations, as well as the place of classics and antiquity in modern culture and today's society. You know, I try to cover everything and welcome on guests who work in various different worlds, and I have loved making my podcast ever since I started it back in 2018. I have 3 seasons now up, which should actually be pretty obvious since I just mentioned recording season 4, and I've had such wonderful responses from all of you. You seem to really enjoy it and I really enjoy making it, although like I mentioned, it's a lot of work. You know, I don't make any money from my podcast. It's not even like YouTube. I can't even, you know, make a few pounds from ads, but for me it is worth it when I have the opportunity to create it. And I have made plans in January and February already to record episodes for season 4, so it should probably be starting in February and carrying on into March. Some of the topics I know that will already be covered are kind of homicide law in ancient Greece, what exactly makes an ancient Greek hero, feminism in the study of classics, but if you ever do have requests for specific episodes or topics that are covered in the podcast, or even just guests I should have on, then just tweet me at That's Ancient, which is the accompanying Twitter account. I always love to hear your feedback, and equally if you do want to support any of the online content I make, you can do so via Patreon or Ko-fi. I will link both of those down below, but don't worry if you can't. The next thing I would like to do in 2020 is have a book come out. I say this because I should be having a book come out. This is another one of those ones that should be happening. I mentioned in my video where I reflected back on 2019 that I worked with DK this year on creating a illustrated children's introduction to Greek mythology. I did not illustrate it, I just did the writing part of it, and it was a really fun collaborative project, but equally it will also be my first published book with my name on it, and that's so exciting. But regardless, I cannot wait to see it finished in person and for it to be available for anybody who's interested in the topic, regardless of what age they are. So that's something exciting that should hopefully be happening in 2020. And on the topic of writing, I would also really like to finish a couple of projects. So I would really like to finish a first draft of my fiction novel I've been working on since late 2018. I feel like a lot of this stuff started in 2018. And that is a kind of like high fantasy dragon fantasy novel with a female-female romance at the centre, and I have loved writing this novel. But it is, like I said, high fantasy, and I have tried to create quite a complex fantasy world around it, and equally, you know, a plot narrative that has, you know, its ups and its downs and a lot of political intrigue and different players in it, and because of that, it's, you know, it's taken me a while to write. I mean, people take 10 years to write a book. I don't know why I'm defending myself, because it's taken me a year and a half to write 50,000 words. That's an incredible achievement and I'm very proud of myself. But I would like to finish that first draft in 2020, and I just want to have this like completed thing, even if it's a bit of a mess and I need to change a lot of it. I'm sure a lot of you relate if you write yourself. I've actually recently, over the festive season, gotten back into using Wattpad as well. I used to use Wattpad like way back in the day. I feel like I had a Wattpad account before I ever had a YouTube channel. But I think over the years I kind of stopped experimenting and sharing my writing online. I felt more like everything I wrote had to be perfect. As I got older, as I shared more of myself online, it felt like everything I did had to be of a certain standard, if that makes sense. But I'm not holding myself to that anymore, and I'm just trying to kind of flex my writing muscles every few days. Well, every day actually over the past few days, but I don't expect that to continue. If I can just, you know, write a couple of days a week, that would be amazing fiction wise. And I don't just mean writing this novel that I just talked to you about, I mean just writing anything, and just, you know, like I said, flexing those muscles, practicing my craft, sharing my writing with other people in order to get feedback, but also to just kind of like be a part of that community, if that makes sense. So I've just been writing a Beauty and the Beast retelling on Wattpad, which I've been really enjoying. It's like a lot of fun, it's like low pressure, but also get some of those stories that are in the back of my mind onto the paper, but also the paper that other people can read, if that makes sense. A big part of writing for me is just sharing it with other people. So I've been really enjoying that, and just generally I want to keep up the fiction writing in 2020, but also I want to finish my adult non-fiction book. So this is a commercial non-fiction book that I've been working on that is related to a specific aspect of Greek mythology. The intention is that it will be an accessible non-fiction book that anyone can pick up, no matter what their experience with the subject is. And I do actually have an agent on board who is enthusiastic about the piece, and of course I'm hoping that we will find a publisher in 2020. I mean, that's why I sent it to an agent. But as is often the case with non-fiction, I pitched this book to my agent without the entire thing. I had written some chapters and like a kind of like detailed synopsis of what the book was about. but hadn't, you know, written every single chapter, so I will be continuing to write that as we hopefully pitch it to publishers in 2020, and it's a project that I really care about, so I'm hoping that it will come to fruition. Finally, for writing, I want to finish a draft of my PhD. I feel like when you think about all these things next to one another, there are a lot of big things, but they're things that the foundations have already been laid for. I mean, I'm not starting my PhD this year. This is the 5th year of my PhD, 2020, and what I would really like to come out with at the end of this year is, you know, a draft of the main body. It will not be done, it will need a lot of editing, it will probably need loads of stuff injected into it, but I just want that, you know, drafted body, because I've written a lot of sporadic parts at the moment, and that is pretty common for a PhD, but I like that kind of drafted body, is basically what I'm saying. And also vaguely in relation to my PhD is, I've written this down with a question mark after it, is learn a language. I have, you know, high school French, I do have ancient Greek, but I'm talking about modern languages here, and I also did a bit of academic German when I was doing my masters at Edinburgh, but something I think I'd like to do whilst I'm still studying at Roehampton, which is my PhD university, is take advantage of their language courses, because as a graduate student I can take their language courses in addition to my, you know, PhD research, and either I'm thinking of starting again with German or going back and doing French, but I think that is something that I should and would like to do in the new year, is just sort of improve my language skills and take one of those courses at the university. I think that's how I would do it anyway, but yeah, I would like to kind of like do more language learning in the new year. But then moving on to more reading goals on my list, I would like to do more buddy reads with my friends, and particularly with friends who don't live nearby me. Love all my friends that live in London or that I see on a regular basis, guys, not against you. But I did get the opportunity to do a few buddy reads in 2019 with friends like Amanda and Kathy that I've made through YouTube but live in North America, so I don't get to see. But buddy reading with them was so nice because we were engaging outside of our videos or Twitter. We were chatting about books one-on-one or like in a group if you're doing a group buddy read, and it just made me feel like I was keeping up with some of the friendships I've made online but with people I can't see in person on a regular basis, if ever. And those friendships still matter to me because I still meet a lot of amazing, fascinating people through BookTube, and I love chatting about books with people. So although in the past I haven't been that great at organising buddy reads, something I want to do in the new year is, you know, make the effort to organise buddy reads with friends who I wouldn't necessarily get to see in person. So yeah, hopefully that actually happens. I'd also like to do a little bit of reading on some subjects I don't really know that much about. So first up, I would like to read a book, any book, about Henry VIII's wives. Not Henry VIII, I mean, I know he'd have to be in the book, I get that, but I don't want it to be a book about Henry VIII, I want it to be a book about his wives or one of his wives, and the reason for that is I saw the musical Six twice in 2019 because I adored it so much, and it inspired an interest in Henry VIII's wives for me because that's what the musical is about. Topic did not really care about prior to going to see the musical. I went to see it with my friend Jill, who's really interested in Tudor history, and thought, well, this will be fun for her birthday, I'll take her to go see this. And I come away thinking, oh my god, these are such fascinating women, I need to know more. Now, I have no doubt Jill will have tons of recommendations of books for me. She may even lend me a book if she's feeling generous, but do leave me any recommendations down below if you've read any really excellent books about any of Henry VIII's wives, because I just want to learn a little bit more about them after having seen Six. That's one of my reading goals. I also would like to read a book about Russian history. My knowledge of Russian history is very much the essentials, the basics, and it's something I was thinking recently that I'd like to learn a little bit more about. I have tons of gaps in my historical knowledge. We've already established I don't know much about the Tudors, but that doesn't mean I'm not interested, and despite the fact that obviously a lot of my historical research and reading energy goes into learning about antiquity because that's my area of expertise and a period that I've spent, you know, many years now studying, I would like to kind of fill in some of those other gaps, and one of those is to read a little bit more about Russia. I'm thinking I will read China Miéville's book, which is all about the Russian Revolution, as my library has a copy, and I love China Miéville, so I think that would be a good one to start with. But again, do leave any recommendations for just interesting books about Russian history. Although you know me, I do love a book that includes the kind of history of like ordinary working class people. Then last but not least is a simple goal, and that is to see my friends Jill and Magdalena. Okay, I see Jill all the time, I really don't need to make that a goal, but our mutual friend Magdalena lives in Sweden, and in 2019, I really struggle remembering the years, we actually went to Sweden to visit her, and in 2018 we went to Poland together, and I just want to make sure that we all do something together again in 2020. But those friendships and relationships are really important to me, so I thought I would finish the list off with that one. But those are the kind of 20 goals that I wrote down to share with you that I would like to complete in 2020. Again, these are meant to be fun, if not kind of mandatory, because they're part of my career or university, but generally speaking fun. So if I don't do one of these things, I am not going to beat myself up about it, even if it is one of the bigger things, because life doesn't always go to plan, and this list isn't about judging myself according to how many things I tick off. It's meant to be about kind of enjoying and making the most of all of the opportunities and access and things that I have in my life, and that's kind of the message I would like to leave you with. But do let me know if you have any thoughts on any of the topics I've mentioned in this video, and also let me know if you have any plans for 2020, things you want to do, places you want to go, people you want to see. What are you looking forward to in the new year? But until next time, happy reading, happy holiday, happy new year, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!